from the Watchman Podcast Show. Okay, so today I want to talk about Jesus. The question that I seem to get a lot is, who killed Jesus? You know, the Sadducees and the chief priests and even the Jews back then deny that they killed Jesus. And they said Pilate killed Jesus. Pontius Pilate, that is. And even Pilate washed his hands of Jesus. He didn't see any fault with Jesus. So, who killed him? But today, I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, who it was that killed Jesus. We're going to start in Matthew 27. In 27:1, we're going to start there, and I'm going to go ahead and read this. And we're going to go through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then we're going to end up back at Matthew again. But just bear with me. Let me go ahead and read this, and you'll get the clues that you would seek if you were asking the question, who killed Jesus? Matthew 27:1. When morning came, all the chief priests and elders of the people plotted against Jesus to put him to death. And when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Judas, I don't even have to read this part, but I'm going to go ahead and bypass Judas. Okay, now we're down here in verse 11. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and Jesus asked him, saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said to him, "It is as you say." It's like he's saying, well, yes, it's just the way you said it. Yes, I am. And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" But he answered him not one word, so that the governor marveled greatly. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to releasing to the multitude one prisoner whom they wished. And at that time they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. Sorry about the pronunciation on that one. Therefore, when they had gathered together, Pilate said to them, "Who do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew that they had handed him over because of envy. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him, saying, "Have nothing to do with this just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitudes that they should ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" They said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "What then shall I do with Jesus, who you call Christ?" They all said to him, "Let him be crucified." Then the governor said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they cried out all the more, saying, "Let him be crucified." When Pilate saw that he had not prevailed at all, but rather that a tumult, or an uprising, was rising, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this just person. You see it. You see to it." And all the people answered and said, "His blood be on us and on our children." Then he released Barnabas to them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Okay, so now we'll go on. Do you see? You heard me read this, and there's just many points here that they were accusing him of nothing because they were envious of him. And Jesus took their thunder. I'm talking about the priest. Jesus always had multitudes with him, people worshiping and listening to Jesus tell them of God and healing and stuff. But what I'm trying to get at is it was because they were envious of him. They wanted him dead. They took him, they were intimidated by Jesus. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go to Mark. All right, now we're in Mark 15:1. Okay. Immediately in the morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council, and they bound Jesus, led him away, and delivered him to Pilate. Then Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of Jews?" He answered and said to him, "It is as you say." Again, Jesus admitted to it. Yes, he is. And the chief priests accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. Then Pilate asked him again, Do you answer nothing? See how many things they testify against you?" But Jesus still answered nothing, so that Pilate was marveled. Similar to Matthew. Now at the feast he was accustomed to release one prisoner to them, whomever they requested. And there was one named Barabbas, who was chained with his fellow rebels. They had committed murder in the rebellion. Then the multitude cried aloud, began to ask him to do just as he had always done for them. But Pilate answered them, saying, "Do you want me to release to you the King of Jews?" For he knew that the chief priests had handed him over because of envy. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd, so that he should rather release Barabbas to them. Pilate answered and said to them again, "What then do you want me to do with whom you call the King of Jews?" So they cried out loud, "Crucify him." Then Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they cried out all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wanting to gratify the crowd, released Barnabas to them, and he delivered Jesus after he had scourged him to be crucified. All right? Similar. It's similar. Again, Pilate doesn't see any wrong doing with Jesus. Okay? He does see and that they envy him. Okay, so let's move on to Luke. All right, this is Luke 23. Okay. Then the whole multitude of them arose and led him to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We found this fellow perverting the nation and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ, a king." Then Pilate asked him, saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him and said, "It is as you say." Again, admitting that he is the king of Jews. So Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no fault in this man." But they were the more fierce, saying, "He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to this place." Teaching was what they're accusing him of doing. Teaching. Okay? So they use, let's see, the excuse was perverting the nation and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, and saying that he was Christ, a king. So, okay, but they were all the more fair, saying, "He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to this place." All right, here's something else that I found very interesting. All right, now Jesus is going to face Herod. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man were a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at the time. Now when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he had desired for a long time to see him, because he had heard many things about him, and he hoped to see some miracle done by him. Then he questioned him with many words, but he answered him nothing. Jesus said nothing to him. And the chief priests and scribes stood vehemently, accused him, still accusing him. Then Herod, with his men of war, treated him with contempt and mocked him, arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him back to Pilate. That very day, Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enmity with each other. They had something against each other. They weren't. Had a falling out somewhere. Okay, so we go on to 13, verse 13. Then Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, said to them, "You have brought this man to me as one who misleads the people, and indeed, having examined him in your presence, I found no fault in this man concerning those things of which you accuse him. No, neither did Herod, for I sent you back to him, and indeed nothing deserving of death has been done by him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For it was necessary for him to release one to them at the feast. And they all cried out at once, saying, Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, who had been thrown into prison for a certain rebellion made in the city, and for murder. Pilate, therefore, wishing to release Jesus again, called out to them. But they shouted, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Then he said to them the third time, Why? What evil has he done? I have found no reason for death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. But they were insistent, demanding with loud voices that he be crucified. And the voices of these men and of the chief priests prevailed. So Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they requested, and he released to them the one they requested, who for rebellion and murder had been thrown into prison. But he delivered Jesus to their will. That is interesting. It's really interesting that Luke mentions Pilate sees Jesus first, and then he sends him to Herod. And neither of the other two mention Herod. It just seemed kind of interesting to me that Luke saw this. He was present for it. Maybe the other two weren't present for Herod. I don't know. But I just found it kind of interesting. All right, so let's go to John. Did you notice so far that Pilate did not find any fault with Jesus at all? And only once in Matthew did he say he was going to wash his hands of it. Like, he's not going to take responsibility for this man's death. But the priest, they're the ones that said they were going to take responsibility for the blood of Jesus. They were going to take all responsibility for it, and their children. All right, so let's go to John. We're going to go to John 19, and we're going to read number 1. So then Pilate took Jesus and scourged him, and the soldiers twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put on him a purple robe. Then they said, Hail, King of the Jews! And they struck him with their hands. Pilate then went out again and said to them, Behold, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him. You remember, all the way through so far, the last 3 apostles clearly said that Pontius Pilate did not find any fault in him whatsoever. Okay, verse 5. Then Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. And Pilate said to them, Behold, the man. Therefore, when the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him! Crucify him! Pilate said to them, You take him and crucify him. For I find no fault in him. He finds no fault in him. That's 4 apostles saying this. The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and according to our law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God." Therefore, when Pilate heard that saying, he was the more afraid, and went again into the Perineum and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave no answer. He didn't say nothing to him. Then Pilate said to him, "Are you not speaking to me? Do you not know that I have the power to crucify you and power to release you?" Jesus answered. Now this is important right here. Listen to this, folks. Jesus answered, "You could have no power at all against me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, the one who delivered me to you has the greater sin." Talking about the priest. From then on, Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, "If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. Whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar." Do you now see? I found that interesting too. That they didn't, even at that time, didn't even consider God King of heaven, King of the world, King of the universe. I found that kind of strange. But they put Caesar on a pedestal as the king. Just found that interesting. While Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus out and sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the Pavement, but in Hebrew is Gabbatha. Now it was the preparation day of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. And he said to the Jews, "Behold, your king." But they cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." That, like I said, that's kind of interesting, don't you think? Then he delivered him to them to be crucified. Then he took Jesus and led him away. All right, so now we're going to get to who I think killed Jesus or sentenced him to death. Okay, so we're going to go back to Matthew. And we're going to go to, I believe it was Matthew 26th. Let's see. And I'm going to read you Jesus celebrates Passover with the disciples. And we'll show a few clues here. And let's see, give me a minute, I'll find it. Okay, 26:26. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And he took the cup and he gave thanks. and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many." I'll read that again. "For this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins." Okay, that's important right there. You need to think about that one. Okay, so what is he telling them? "For this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins." See anything there? "But I say unto you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." Okay? And when they sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. All right, so we're going to drop down a little bit to verse 36. I'm going to read you this. Now, these are just clues. In my opinion, these are clues. Okay? "Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane." I'm not saying this right here. I just said it. Gethsemane. Okay, it's the garden. Okay, and said to the disciples, "Sit here while I go and pray over there." And I am really sorry about my pronunciation. And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and he began to sorrowful and deeply he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Okay? Then he said to them, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me." He went a little farther and fell on his face and praying, saying, "Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nonetheless, not as I will, but as you will." Okay, so we'll drop down to 42. Again, a second time, he went away and prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me unless I drink it, your will be done." Okay, so with that being said, I would say, and I'm pretty sure of this, God, his Father, sentenced him to death. He had to die on the cross so through him he could save people. So it wasn't the chief priest, it wasn't the Pharisees, it wasn't the Sadducees, it wasn't even the Jews at that time, or Pontius Pilate. None of them sentenced him to death. He was already sentenced to death by his Father in heaven. Remember that Jesus was God in flesh. He came to the earth to walk the earth. So he had to die for people to be saved, so they'd have a home in heaven. So like I said, it's my opinion, but I know for sure that God is the one that sentenced him to death. For our sins, he had to die. So I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I hope and if you liked it, like, share, and subscribe, people. It's free. If you want to hear some more, then come back and join in and have an ear for me, and we'll all be blessed. I hope you were blessed. Okay, so and also I have a mother site. It's called WatchmanNews.proboards.com. And listen, it's got a lot of good stuff on there. It's all Bible based. I do have some news of interest going on in the world that I think at least we should know about, because we all should be watchmen or watchwomen. We all need to keep our eyes open. God tells us this. And also, I have a commentator, a good friend of mine, a good brother of mine. His name is Les Brewer, and he also has a website, but he comes on my website and puts up some valuable biblical information you'd find interesting. So just come over and take a look at it. Like I said, you can join. It's free to join. And I'd like to hear from you. And if you get any comments about this episode today, please leave them in the comment place below, and I'll get back with you. And have a blessed day. Thank you.